Hi, Potchin Bechvod Achsanya. I'd like to thank Ela Matalon and Iris Golani and the entire MIT staff for inviting us, for always assembling a very professional and interesting panel, and for paying attention to every detail to create a successful event. Kol hakavod. I would also thank my colleague Rex Sherry and Raymond James Financial for co-sponsoring the event. We have been representing Raymond James for as long as I've been in the business, 25, 30 years, and Rex has a long history in Israel from his prior association with Merrill Lynch, and I am confident that this is the first step of a major effort and success for Raymond James in Israel. Next, I am instructed to give a 1-minute advertisement for my firm, Greenberg Traurig. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Gary Epstein. I am the chair of the I used to be chair of the national practice, then we got bigger, so now I'm chair of the global and who knows, galactic maybe next, the corporate and securities practice of Greenberg Traurig. Greenberg Traurig is a law firm of 1,800 attorneys, 1,800 orchei din, for those of you whose mind is spinning at the notion of that many attorneys. Why do you need that many attorneys? 35 offices, including London, Shanghai, Amsterdam, and pretty much every city that you know in the United States. And under the guidance of our Israeli business coordinator, Meital Stavinsky, who is of counsel to the firm, we have been coming here since the Second Intifada. I was once one of 4 guests at the King David Hotel. Rotzin l'daber im ha'oreach. And we have been cultivating relationships with Israeli companies for 8 years now, introducing them to our 50,000 lukuchot, and the enterprise has gone quite well. Now, I should tell you that I have 3 jokes. One I am going to start with, one I am going to end with, and depending on how mishamem this actually is, I may spring one in the middle, so I want you to stay alert. Yehudi Zaken Yoshev Birakevet, ובא הכרטיסן, ומבקש את כרטיס, מבקש? לא, דורש את הכרטיס. ואומר, אין לי כרטיס. אז תיתן לי את הכסף, שיקגו ללוס אנגלס, אין לי כסף. מה פתאום? אז תרד מהרכבת. He says, שמע את הסיפור. שמי מוישי גולדברג, אני חיית פשוט, אשתי מתה, נפטרה, ונשאר לי בן יחיד, והמצב בינינו לא היה כל כך טוב, והוא עזב ונסע ללוס אנגלס, ולא דיברנו, אבל בחודש עבר, הוא התקשר אליי והגיד לי שהוא מתחתן, והוא רוצה שאני אהיה בחתונה שלו. אין לי כסף. לא יכולתי, לא רציתי לשאול. אז בבקשה, תיתן לי לשבת, אני לא מפריע לשום איש. הלב נשבר. הכרטיסן אמר, תשב אדוני, שתהיה לך מזל טוב ונחת מהשמחה, והולך לקרון האחר, עוד יהודי זקן. כרטיס, אין לי כרטיס. כסף, אין לי כסף. מה פתאום, אתה גנב. He said, גולדברג הזמין אותי לחתונה של הבן שלו. Now, is that relevant? Yes, because to succeed at an IPO or at M&A, you need a compelling story. And more importantly, it is not enough to say, you need to understand what your audience is looking for. Most people, most entrepreneurs, most people who build companies know everything about their own company. And they think that once they present the story, it is going to be sufficiently compelling to the other side that they are going to realize what they desire. If you take nothing away from tonight's presentation, take away this, that periodically you should get outside of your own little or big world and put yourself on the other side of the table and say, what are those people thinking? What are they looking for? What do I look like to them? And that's the notion of thinking global, thinking public from the first day. You can be entrepreneurial, but how entrepreneurial? How prepared to take a risk is a responsible investment bank if you don't have a management team and a board of directors that conveys a sense of gravitas, that has a serious, it's not just a killer app, it's not just a great idea, it's not just that they should understand how brilliant you've been in developing this team and developing this product. What you need to know is everything about who the buyer is and what the buyer is looking for. And in an M&A context, it's not always the same thing. One buyer is looking for market share, and another buyer needs your technology because they already have everything else. Some buyers have huge marketing ability but have a gap in their product line, and if they can fit your product into their product line, it will add no cost but will add revenue. Not only do you need to know what they're looking for, but you can help shape yourself into what they need. I represented a company that made a hematology product that that actually in the doctor's office could take a blood sample and do a simple diagnosis that they used to just send to labs. And my client shopped it to all of the major players, to Abbott and to Boehringer Mannheim and all the people that you would think, and they were very interested. And in the course, my client thought that this was such a great product that they were willing to take just a little money up front as long as they get royalties on sales, because they thought this was going to be in every doctor's office in the world. And the negotiation started, and they put more money on the table. I'm not going to tell you which company because it's a bad story. They put more money on the table than we thought they were going to. And then they said, and we'll pay you this royalty on sales. Whenever you negotiate anything like an earn-out or a royalty on sales, you need to make very sure, from a legal perspective, from a business perspective, that the company that is buying the product or licensing the product is going to market it effectively, because you're making your money on the back end. So we started putting in provisions about how they would market it together with their other products, and they would devote no less attention to that than to their best-selling products, and on and on. And we ran into a brick wall. They said, we will never let you tell us how to run our business. We will pay you these dollars, and we will give you this royalty on sales, and that's it. And I walked into the other room with my client, and I said, get as much as you can, because they're never selling this thing. And they said, you're crazy. It's a killer product. It's going to revolutionize the industry. I said, maybe, but right now, they're making $12 zillion in their labs and with their equipment, and they are buying this to take it off the market because they'll make no commitment at all. And sometimes lawyers argue with clients. They bought it, they paid a significant sum, and the product did not come to market for 8 years, while the buyer was realizing the revenues from its legacy product. You need to know. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I met today with an Israeli company that said that they would not market their product to GE, which was a good potential buyer, because GE was working on its own application for this, And you know the rule about not invented here. If it's not invented here, they thought it. He said, that doesn't mean anything. They may want your technology so nobody else gets your technology. They may want your technology to enhance their technology, or they may want your technology to put it away. You need to think like that. Think like a buyer. In the IPO context, think of how you look to the investment banker, how you're going to look to the institution, the 12-year-old analyst. I'm sorry, but from my perspective, everybody looks about 12 years old, but these people really are 12 years old. They know everything about the industry, and they come in and they are not shy about asking questions, and they will tell you your compensation is too high. And they will tell you they're not sure you're going to hit your projections, and they're going to challenge you. And again, if you're going to make that presentation, and Rex will tell you at an IPO you're making 20 meetings sometimes a day during the IPO process, going from one to another to another to another, and being grilled about the company. You need to know, look, how do you look from their perspective? And once you start thinking that, you adjust part of your behavior. You need how realistic are the expectations that you're going to have to live with and that they're going to have to live with? How predictable are your earnings? They look for a reliable core of earnings and then a significant growth slope. How significant is this company likely to grow? What's the addressable market? Just visualizing how you look from the other side's perspective is always a good idea. I am going to, how much time is this? Give me about 5 minutes for the other joke, okay? And then just raise your hand. This is not a nuts and bolts presentation. I can tell you how to prepare for an IPO, and I am prepared to tell you for free, if you will just send me an email. I will send you a presentation on the necessary legal and organization steps on getting to an IPO. But that would really kill you. I'm not doing that tonight. I am prepared to give it for free, and all you need to do is send me an email, or my email's on the MIT website, or ask Maytal, who's much more approachable than I am. I'm just going to assume that you've got a great company, and that an IPO or an M&A is a realistic alternative for you, and just ask you to think about the key legal and governance issues. For example, many Israeli companies are told by other Israeli companies that they need to be Delaware companies. And they need to be Delaware companies with an Israeli subsidiary that does R&D, because that's more acceptable to the investing public. You need to test that concept. You need to talk to a professional investment banker and to buyers whether it's really to your advantage to be a U.S. company, whether it's beneficial to be a U.S. company, because there are advantages to being a foreign private issuer from a disclosure perspective. The SEC yesterday announced new rules on say-on-pay. Shareholders are going to be able to vote on whether they think the chief executive officer is paid too much. There are going to be relaxations of the proxy rules where shareholders are going to be able to submit issues for consideration in the company's proxy materials. There is an increasing shareholder empowerment regime in the U.S. You may want to be an Israel company and a foreign private issuer and have those relaxed disclosure. Or your banker may tell you that will cut your multiple. Something to think about. If you're thinking about going global and going public, you need to get your tax structure in place. If you are thinking of a worldwide marketing plan and your revenue is going to come offshore from places outside the United States, you need to talk to your accounting firm or your lawyers about what's going to minimize taxes. How can I get the transfer pricing for my IP into a location that is a low tax jurisdiction? All these things can't happen the day before you go public. They have to be considered while you're building your product, building your company. So you poor things. In addition to a killer app and a disruptive technology and a significant addressable market and a strong management team and a compelling business plan and a well-developed marketing program and profits, or at least a clear path to revenue depending on the industry and market cycle, and a successful business. Once you have all that, then you can start to think about what the company should look like. And, as Yankee said, it used to be a lot easier. I mean, I'm old enough to remember people taking concepts public, and people taking how many houses the wires crossed public, whether or not it translated into revenue and profits. It's gotten much harder. The market is much tougher. There's plenty of money out there, but the drill has become significantly higher. From an M&A perspective, and Ewa, if I understood her correctly, was suggesting that you're really not interested in exits, you're interested in perpetuity. Everyone I've met is interested in exits. But I could be wrong. But from an M&A perspective, you want the best price and terms, and you want to be able to keep the money once somebody pays it to you. And the interesting thing about M&A is that at various points in the process, the leverage shifts. If somebody is interested in buying your company, or even better, if you have hired a great investment bank to manage the process, and they have created a competition among potential buyers, so that not only is your wonderful company up for sale, but 3 or 4 buyers not only want to buy it, but keep their competitors from getting it. There is a point in that process where you are the prettiest girl in high school, and everybody wants you, and that you are at your maximum leverage. And then at some point, you choose one for exclusivity. And the pendulum swings to the other side. Because if that deal doesn't happen, you have to go back to the market, and you're damaged goods. You're the people who couldn't make the deal. And by the way, you just rejected the other 3 suitors who wanted to go to the prom with you. So before that happens, you try to get the terms as nailed down as possible. And what will allow the buyer to walk away from the deal? What will the reps and warranties be? You need to have a cap on indemnification. And in order to do that, you need to know what market is. If you've told them something that's wrong, do they get the entire damages back, or the entire purchase price, or it will be capped at a percentage of the purchase price? Now, tell me how much time. I'm finished? 5 minutes. Okay. I have much more to say. The problem is I really didn't get to prepare this until very late, so I over-prepared. Let me just give you a few high points. Why go public, number one? Because I think Yankee was going there. Do you want to go public? Number one, it's money you don't have to pay back. There's not a lot of that. You get a large amount of cash at a single time, and you can use it to grow your business. They value you on a multiple of earnings. So instead of taking $1 home, somebody pays you $6 or $8 for that dollar of earnings. Sometimes they pay you a multiple of estimated earnings. That's really good. Sometimes they pay you a multiple of adjusted earnings, which is just made up. Once you're public, you can get access to capital markets and raise money more easily. You can do pipe deals, private placements of your securities. You can get liquidity. You can create employee loyalty by giving them stock options. You can use your stock as acquisition currency. You get status because, after all, if you're Israeli, your kid, all the other kids in Mimmon have parents who've been through 3 or 4 exits, and it's just, embarrassing. It creates estate planning flexibility for you, and also, if you go public, you really don't give up the same kind of level of control if you sell your company. And I'm talking about going public in an IPO through an underwriter, through an underwriting syndicate to sale to institutions and to retail on an established market, resulting in a liquid security and trading on an exchange. There are alternatives to going public that way: AIM, SPACs, reverse mergers. Those are, you can, I use this in a non-insulting way. You can have an illegitimate birth and still have a good career. Abraham Lincoln's mother was illegitimate. But everybody sort of would prefer their parents to be married. It gives you a better start in life. Going public in a orderly IPO as opposed to a reverse merger with a shell corporation is preferable. The downside of IPOs, management distraction. It takes 3 to 5 months. There's no assurance that it will be completed. Everything depends on the markets. I think yesterday was the anniversary of the 519-point drop in the market, October 19th. That happens. And then your stock that's sitting there in registration waiting to go doesn't go. It's expensive, 7% to the underwriter. Lawyers take as much as we can. Audit fees, printing, filing. It gives you reduced flexibility because all of a sudden you're starting to manage for the earnings, worried about missing expectations. Incentives can go wrong. A successful IPO in some cases can result in a very rich and unmotivated employment staff. And if the price falls, people get very upset. You live in a fishbowl, there's disclosure, your neighbors know how much you make or how much you're losing. There is exposure to litigation because there are lawyers out there that live to sue public companies. That's how they make a living. I've got a great story about that, but I don't have time. And again, as the process of preparing a company to go public, I will give you that if you simply email it to me. Suffice it to say that it's a manageable process. You can manage the process, but the most important thing, and let me see how self-serving I can be in the next 90 seconds. If you have that profitable company and the addressable market and a great industry and a great management team, the most important thing for you to think about is assembling the right team of professionals to make sure that you get through the process. Not because what we do is rocket science or because we're so smart, though I personally am very smart, but because the right chemistry and the right experience maximizes the chance of success, minimizes the chance of disruption, and you don't want to go through this expensive process and experience too much disruption. So we know exactly what the SEC is going to say before the SEC says it. And we can advise you whether or not we should put it in and take the SEC comment or whether we should revise the disclosure so that the SEC will like it. We pay $100,000 a year for a subscription to a service that collects every single SEC comment on every single prospectus that's filed. And we can sort it by industry and by time of day and say we know exactly what the SEC is going to do because they're very consistent on these things. You need to buy that experience, that expertise, because this is a process that can't really hang around too long and take too many chances. You need to know when that you have bankers who've been through the process, who have an analyst that's going to cover this industry, who are respected, and you're going to leverage off their respect. And I am really out of time. Okay. I promised him a joke, okay? Thank you. So, Oleh Chadash, she's going to remember this one. This is my favorite joke. Oleh Chadash, Yoshe b'mirpeset shelo, v'roeh sheyesh lo shcheno eitz tapuzim. והולך ולוקח 3 תפוזים ומתחיל לאכול. השכן רץ מהבית וצועק, אדוני, כתוב בתורה לא תגנוב. והעולה החדש מחייך ואומר לאשתו, מה נאה לגור בארצנו הקדושה, אוכלים תפוזים ושומעים דברי תורה. So I got 2 laughs. I hope you've learned something. I mean, again, there is so much. 20 minutes really is difficult for, what you should do to prepare for M&A and IPOs. But I promise I will send you much more material than you want to read if you just ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. You said why we should go on an IPO or why we should not go on an IPO. I'd like to add my own perspective here. I think that the major question that I would ask myself is this just a financial transaction, or do you see other value in going on an IPO process? I mean, is it important for your company to be a public company besides the fact that you can raise money or not raise money? I'll give you one small example over here. We tried to penetrate the US market as a small Israeli company. We were unsuccessful completely with that. Once we went public, the moment we went public, we got so much exposure, so much presence, so much credibility in the US market that immediately at that time, sales in the US started to rocket up in a very significant way. So for us, being public was not just a mean to raise funds for the company to be rich or not to be rich. It was something the company it was important for the company to do it. And I would suggest that in some industries, it's the opposite. Being public may harm your business. So I would add the other non-financial pluses and minuses into the equation.
In my experience, companies can go public for the most part. I mean, because it gives that prestige, it gives the currency of stock to reward employees and to make acquisitions. People are aware there are so many public companies out there. They know that the process is manageable, and they think they can live with the associated inconvenience and the very real deficiencies, including you disclose confidential information.
Sure.
But by and large, I don't think I've ever had a client who could go public, say, I'm not going public, I'm staying private, by its own choice.
Iskar. But we have a few more.
There are, obviously,
But apparently not your client. But anyway, actually he's, sorry. We'll discuss it during the panel, because then I would suggest that there is a threshold. If you can go public, maybe. But today, especially today, since it's so complicated, so expensive, so demanding, then let's discuss later on the minimum requirements. I'd like to invite our next speaker, Rex Sherry from, hello. Just a disclosure here, a small, my own disclosure. I tried to do business with Raymond James, they refused. So, please.